2, 1. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is Councilwoman Porterfield, and we are having our District 29 community meeting. So again, thank you for the individuals who are on the call. And if you are on the call, if you could please mute, we're getting some feedback. So again, thank you for everyone that has joined us today for this call. We do have a lot of information that we're going to go through. For anyone who was not able to attend, we are recording, so you will be able to watch this video, or if you attend and you have questions, you will be able to go back and watch this video at a later time. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. We do have a packed agenda. We are going to start off with, I see Tasha Hodge from the trustee's office. She'll be doing a presentation. And actually, I'm sorry, let me step back and say, we did disable videos for this call due to some of the previous calls having some issues with lagging and bandwidth. So we're not doing videos on the call. However, you will be able to see any presentations from the presenters. So we're going to start off with the representative from the trustee's office.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. We wanted to be a part of this meeting today, and thank you, Councilwoman, for inviting me. We're experiencing these unprecedented times, and we're no longer able to present in person. And so I am with the Metro Nashville Trustee's Office. Our new trustee is Erica S. Gilmore, and I am the Community Outreach and Public Engagement Director. I wanted to just have a brief moment to speak with everyone in your district, just to let them know that we are planning a virtual event, which will be an hour-and-a-half long event on February 5th at 6:00 p.m. And I'd like to invite anyone. I have a link for you to share, and I can forward that to you, just to get the information out about the tax relief program, who qualifies, the application, what needs to be submitted with the application. And so I'd like to invite everyone, and I don't know, this is my first meeting with you, so I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but I would like to invite everyone out. And if we need more than one meeting, we can schedule that as well. So I don't know, I can't see here. I don't know how many people, or if anybody has any questions about the program prior to the meeting, they can reach out to me directly. And I am getting ready to give you my email address so that you can email me. So if you have, I'll give you a second to get pen and paper.
Can you give us a little information about the program now, just a brief overview, age and income qualifications and what the program does?
Absolutely. The tax relief program is a program that is for the people. There are three types. We have the tax freeze, which if you meet the age qualifications and the income qualifications, you must be 65 years or older by December 31st of the current year. You must make under $30,700 per year to qualify for the tax freeze program. And what that does, it will prevent you from getting any additional increases in your property taxes, from here on out. You would have to submit a verification form each year following. Okay. We also have the tax relief program that, thanks to your council members, the council members with this program have donated 5 times more than any other city in the state of Tennessee. And so that program allows us to, what you receive would be a discounted rate on your taxes every year. Same thing, the income qualifications for that would be $43,700. And with that program, it would just be a discount annually. You'd have to recertify every year and submit your income documents. Now, the first time you apply, you will have to include your tax return or your Social Security statement. But each year following, you're just verifying on the document that we will send you to complete. Did I explain that clearly, Councilwoman?
I don't know if anyone has any questions right now. If
Okay.
anyone has any questions about it, feel free to raise your hand. And I believe Ms. Hodges is also, okay, so we had someone in the chat say, yes, it was clear. So thank you for that. And we will share Ms. Hodges' email address. So if anyone has any questions, you all can follow up with her. I'll also be sharing out the information in my newsletter. One thing that I would ask is that, we don't always have senior citizens that are able to join our calls. And unfortunately, that's a downside of having to meet virtually in this space. Sometimes we lose people, and we want to make sure that everyone is able to get this information. So I would just ask that you do share the information with your neighbors so that they can know what's happening, and so that they can know about that program, and if they qualify. So we do want anyone that does qualify for the program, we want to make sure that they are able to take advantage of it.
And I'd like to say one more piece with that, because we have historically been able to come to the communities and actually take the applications in person. Because we can't do that anymore, once we have our meetings with your district, we will schedule a time and place to be available in your community to pick up the documents and actually take them back to the office to be processed. So we would still like to serve everyone in their own communities as best we can until this is all over with. So if that helps, if there's someone who is in need of a paper application, I can have those mailed to you. Councilwoman, please share my telephone number. And if anyone needs anything, if it's a hand delivery, a hand pickup, we will do all we can to get as many applicants as we can for this program. And the presentation that we'll have next month will give you a more detailed explanation of the program. But right now, you have the income guidelines, which is probably the biggest question, or the most frequently asked question that we get. And you know that we will be available to you. So if you could share my information, like the Honorable said, to your friends, your neighbors, your churches, your church members. We would like for as many people who can qualify for this program to take advantage of this program. And if I'm missing anything, or if I'm forgetting anything, or if there's anything else that you'd like me to touch base on, please let me know.
Thank you so much. And I will share that we do have someone from our library here, the director of our Metro Public Libraries, and he did say to check in with the Southeast Library and that they can help you with the program. Lindsay is the branch manager for the Southeast Library. So if you would like to check in with her, she can help you and make sure that we get this information out so everyone qualifies.
That would be fantastic. Is the library open? Can I leave applications there possibly?
If you could connect with her offline, that would be great. Her email address is in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So we're going to move right along to the next item on the agenda. As you all know, there is a parcel of land on Smith Springs Road that is next to the Comptons. That parcel is across from our our Smith Springs Community Center, and that is a site that there have been a few different proposals over the years about what to do with that site. I've been very vocal with our community in our council meetings, in the newsletter. I've been very vocal about my thoughts when it comes to rezoning. And I do see a few people on the call here that haven't been on some of the other calls. So I'll just really briefly just give you an overview. When it comes to rezoning, for me, I'm very, very particular. I put a lot of thought into it. I always want to make sure that we're considering what this will do to the community, not just immediately, but how this will impact the community 40, 50 years from now, 20 years from now. So I try to be very thoughtful with the development when we're considering it. I also think about the impact on infrastructure in schools. So I personally have not been a proponent of increasing the density in our area and adding things like apartments, solely because we don't have that infrastructure in place to put that there. So, as you know, on that site, there was a proposal years ago to add some density there. And I know, there were people that had concerns about that. The owners of the property did reach out to me with some proposals, and we've been in conversation for a little over maybe about a year now, maybe even longer than a year now with COVID. But we've been in conversation about some potential proposals for that site. So today they are going to be presenting to us, what the plan that they have. Again, when it comes down to rezoning, I always ask people to bring this to the community so that we can get community insight and community feedback. We're not making any decisions today. This is simply an information session. This will allow people to ask questions, any questions that we don't have the answer to right now. We can make sure to get those answers back to you. But this is just starting a conversation about what it can look like on that particular site. Before we do rezonings, again, I always do these community meetings. I get community input. If the community decides that they will support a rezoning, I always want to share that information out with you all. You have opportunities to speak at the public hearing for the planning department. You also have an opportunity to speak at the council's public hearing, and you have the opportunity to contact me as well. So there are multiple ways to address either your support or your concerns. So with that, we're going to go ahead and look at this particular proposal. And I'm sorry, one more thing. If you're not familiar with the rezoning process, rezoning goes through 3 readings of council. So it will have to go to the planning department. And again, there's a public hearing. The community can give their thoughts on the project. The planning department will either approve it or disapprove it. And then if the council member is in support, the council member will bring the legislation before the council. And there are 3 separate readings before the legislation passes. That second reading is a public hearing. So again, people can call in and give their thoughts in support or in opposition. So again, tonight is just introducing the proposal to the community so that we can start that conversation and see what you all think about it. So with that, Jared, I'm going to turn it over to you. And Jared, if you're talking,
yes, hopefully everybody can hear me.
We can hear you now.
Fantastic. Good evening. I appreciate everyone being here tonight, and wanted to, basically have the opportunity to present what we have come up with through many, many months working with Councilwoman Porterfield for this property. As she indicated, we are the tract of property that is across the street from the existing Smith Springs Road Community Center and adjacent to the Compton's CB. Let me scroll down. Can everybody see the screen that shows a future library site and various units numbered?
We can see the screen.
You can. Fantastic. Okay. First off, I wanted to point out that we are looking in this proposal to dedicate an area for a future library site. And that area is roughly 2.44 acres. It is of substantial size and would provide enough land area for a branch library. We use, just for everybody's information, as far as footprint and test, the Bellevue, Tennessee branch library. You can see where we are providing an access here. The Smith Springs Road access is obviously you want to line up access points where you can, and therefore what we're doing is we're locating it directly across from the constructed, obviously the Smith Springs Community Center, whenever this aerial photograph was taken, was still under construction. So there we are lining up the access as constructed with what we are proposing, and that is the reason why you don't see a separate access off of Smith Springs Road there. And we are showing one that is a little off center here, but again, this is a church. We don't have a whole lot of traffic coming out for that reason. But what we are presenting to you tonight essentially is 74 single family residences. Again, we've got the potential library area here. Regarding what the buildings will look like, let me share a couple of items with you as well. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. You will see at the front that we have single family attached. This is the single family attached that we are proposing for this development. You will see that we have a mixture of brick, stone, hardy. We're going to stay away from any type of cheap products for construction. We do have a lot of architectural offsets, etc. On that. And these are the single family detached footprints that we are considering. Again, interested in feedback from everyone on this call in regards to what those specifically would look like. Bear with me. Let me get back to my plan. And I do apologize for having to bounce back and forth through different formats. We got a PDF and we have a JPEG. Okay, let me get back to the plan there. Obviously, this is set up in very much a kind of a neo-traditional area, and we would make it walkable. You would have sidewalks so that you could walk from one end of the area to the other. You can see on the aerial, we've also taken the opportunity to provide some natural buffer away from the residences that are located here. If you can see my area, my arrow, it is to the north and also to the west. CB is located adjacent to the library site. And so you can see that large detention area. That's a nice natural buffer that obviously we would have landscaping, etc. on that. A couple of things that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention because it is a concern is obviously traffic on Smith Springs Road. And that is something that we have preliminarily looked at. Our development, be it that it is relatively small, would not change the level of service, but we would further evaluate our proposed impacts whenever we get to the point that we are submitting, so that everybody would not only be taking my opinion as an engineer on this, but also Metro Public Works opinion. They would obviously be looking at all of our numbers and data and would concur with that. Also, water and sewer infrastructure availability, all of that is modeled for this specific development. We have greater than 1,000 gallons per minute at 20 psi as required. And that is not me saying that. That would be Metro saying that with our water and sewer availability letter. And that's them. They actually model the entire system. And so that is something that, we are cognizant of and do not have a problem with. Also, detention and water quality. You can see this detention pond here. We are also required to filter all of our stormwater. So our detention pond will retain the water and allow it to discharge at a pre-developed rate. So one of the things that we have to do as engineers, whenever we submit to Metro any plan, even in a preliminary SP form, we would be submitting our documents, our models that are then reviewed by the Metro Stormwater Department to concur that we are not having any type of impact for our proposed development. So with that, one thing also additionally, I will be posting in the chat or however we need to do it. I will be posting a Google Drive link, and in that Google Drive link will be this data that you are looking at. So you don't have to go back and listen to the video countless times. And so at that point, everyone can download it. You won't be able to make changes to it, etc. But you will be able to download that data, look at it, and then with that, if anyone has any questions, then I'm all ears.
Okay, this is Matt Wilkinson with the Metro Council office. If you have any questions, you can either do the chat feature. I've seen a couple do that, and I'll go through and read those out. Or if you want to ask it yourself, just raise your hand, and when I call your name, unmute yourself, and then ask your question. So the first question that was in the chat is from Charles Foster. What will the setbacks from property lines be between the single-family dwellings? And so before I turn it back over to Jared, I just want to clarify a couple of things. While we use the language single family and attached single family, this will be a horizontal property regime. So it'll be a single lot with multiple units on it. And so when you see this, if the council member and the community support and you see it go through, it will be labeled as multifamily on the bill, but don't let that throw you. They'll still be detached like this. It's just how the property is structured and how our zoning ordinance is written, because we can only consider something single family if it's the only dwelling unit on the lot. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jared so he can answer the setback question.
Regarding your front and rear setbacks, your rear setbacks are roughly 20 feet. Your front setbacks are greater than 20 feet, and that's very much on purpose. We want to allow for parking that is outside of the proposed garages. If your garage is anything like mine, it's full of stuff, everything but an automobile. And so we want to have the opportunity for cars to be able to park outside of the garage and not be hanging out over the sidewalks or even worse yet, parking along the street. So in that regard, that's where we're at. Spacing between the buildings, again, single family attached, they are fully attached in various unit sizes. Units 1 through 5, obviously 5 units. 6 to 12 is 6 units, and then we got a 4 unit here. In between these two buildings, I believe we are showing 8 feet. So they are separated by 8 feet in between those buildings.
Jared, can you just to make sure that we're completely clear, how many what's the total number of attached and the total number of detached? I know you said 74 total, but how many of those are attached and how many are detached?
Okay, 1 through 16 are attached. So of the 74 total units, we have 16 that are attached. They are all located along Smith Springs Road. That is done very much on purpose. That provides nice screening for the community and also limits the impact greatly on any type of adjoining a residential area. That leaves 58 single family detached units.
Great. The next question is also from Charles. Will there be an HOA requirement for the owner occupancy?
Horizontal property regimes, one of the good things about a horizontal property regime is you essentially are purchasing your structure. Everything around it is common area. So what that means is, to answer your question directly, yes, but the benefits is, obviously everything is maintained, everything is manicured, and everything with the HOA at the same time.
And if I could just jump on the end of that, with a horizontal property regime like this, they can't dissolve the HOA without dissolving their whole structure of property ownership. So unlike a subdivision where you may see an HOA fall off after 20 years or 30 years, it would be very difficult for them to do that without tearing down the development and doing something else on the property. The next question is from Tasha Ellis. What's the estimated price for these homes?
We are looking at upper 200s to low 300s.
Great. From Devin Grieg, will Smith Springs Road be expanded to compensate for the increased traffic?
That would be obviously subject to the review of Public Works and our traffic study. If our traffic study requires improvements to Smith Springs Road in order for our property to, be constructed, then obviously we'll have to, comply with the recommendations of Public Works.
Let me,
yes,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to jump in on that one before we go. Were you getting ready to say something about it?
No, I was getting ready to move on to the next question. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. I just want to, because I want to make sure that there is a good understanding about how that works. If they did have to expand Smith Springs Road, if the traffic study came back and said that they had to do an improvement, that improvement is in front of the development. So that would not expand the totality of Smith Springs Road. That wouldn't expand, let's say, all the way down to Butler or, approaching Bale. It would only cover in front of the development based on the results of the traffic study, or very close to the development based on the results of the traffic study. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there, and the only offsite improvements are really just limited to like intersection improvements. So if at the corner of Anderson and Smith Springs, if the traffic study said that it needed a turn lane, then they could make them do the turn lane, and that's sort of the limitation on what they would be required to do with improving the street. So
thank you. For the next question, Matthew, let's let Mr. Oliver from the library speak on that. The next question is, what is the likelihood of the future library? So, Mr. Oliver, if you or someone from the public library could kind of speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I hope everybody's doing well this evening. A little bit of history regarding the site and library branch development. The library completed a facilities master plan in 2015-16, and it was revised in 2019. And in the original version of our plan, property was identified in this area to be considered for a future branch. The concept of our entire plan is that we want all of Davidson County to be within 3 miles or 15 minutes of a library branch. And this location would actually be about 3.5 miles from the current southeast branch. There are currently a couple of branches in the queue ahead of this that we would like to complete. Donaldson, which is actually going to be under construction later this year, we hope. We're planning Richland Park and Hadley Park at the current time. And Thompson Lane is also in the queue that we'd like to look at as well. And the Smith Springs site is something that is in our plan and something that we would be excited about. I was looking through my communications earlier today and noticed that actually as far back as the summer of 2017, we were in communication with Ashley of Scout Properties talking about this specific location. And we think it's an ideal location. It's directly across from, obviously, the community center. We think we can develop some pretty exciting energy between programming with the parks and ourselves, in addition to serving this part of the county. The next step, if we were to acquire the property, would be to have it actually funded in the capital process, and the council person would be critical to helping us make that happen. But the mayor's office is aware that we are interested in this particular branch project. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you so much. And I'll add just a little perspective from my view as well. Prior to me running for office, I was, aware of the library's master plan, and I knew that the idea was to get a library out here. And I know that was something that I talked to a lot of the constituents in our community about, especially the residents that live behind Compton's. We do have a lot of families in that area that have expressed that they do want to see the library move forward. I think this helps us. In the sense that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Oliver, but it becomes a little bit easier to navigate this process when someone has needed us the land, as opposed to us as a city having to purchase the land and then having to get funding also for the library. So when the land is deeded to us and basically donated to us as a city, that significantly increases the likelihood that we would get the library because we now would own that land.
I would totally agree with you. The big challenge, as you mentioned, for any of our branches now as we go forward that are not tear down and rebuilds on existing locations would be just obtaining the building sites. And the fact this particular parcel is perfect to go forward with 20 to 25,000 square foot branch that would have meeting rooms, large collection, computer access, a number of different things. So it would actually fit right into our plan, and the fact that they are considering gifting it to the city in some way perhaps is a huge bonus for us.
And one other thing that I do want to clarify, just because I think it's important to clarify it, we are not allowed to go into, I cannot say that I'm going to withhold their rezoning if they don't give us the land for the library. Like we can't blackmail a developer into doing something. What we can do is create, these public-private partnerships. The developer is willing to do this. So this is not this is just something that we've tried to work through, and the developer is willing to donate that land to the city. So I just want to be really careful about I don't want there to be a perception about them donating that land to the city. I mean, this is if it were to work, this would be a huge improvement for our area. This will be really great. But for me, it's also important that we look at the merits of the program in its totality. Like, yes, we want the library, absolutely. But we also want to make sure that if we as a community want this development, we want to make sure that this development is complementary to our neighborhood, that is not going to, have an adverse impact on our community. So again, that's why I want to make sure that we will bring this back for a few community meetings. This won't be the only conversation on it, because I want to make sure that we get as much impact, as much feedback from our neighbors as possible. So thank you for everyone that's asked questions about it. Our last question, and then I'll turn it back over to see if Mr. Gray or Mr. Oliver has anything that they want to say before we move on to the next presentation. But the last question is about owner occupancy. So are you asking, Mr. Foster, if these have to be owner occupied? And if so, if that's your question, I believe that can be worked out through the HOA, but I will let Mr. Gray or Mr. Wilkinson address that. But if you could clarify the question, if that's not the question, if you could clarify it, I'd appreciate it.
I raise my hand.
Charles, you're unmuted.
Thank you. This is Charles Foster. Yes, my question regarding certain HOAs do place a requirement on the owner of the property to be an occupant of the property, or is this going to be a HOA where a large number of the properties would likely become investor owned and provided as rentals?
Jared, do you want to answer that?
We have the owners of the property online as well. They might be better to answer that specific question. It's definitely something that if I do not have the exact answer, I don't want to speak for the owners, but it is definitely something that I would imagine would be in our SP proposal as far as defining. I don't know that I can say it would be 100%. Obviously, it would all be individually owned, but definitely, I think you could probably anticipate seeing a specified, if it's not 100%, a specified percentage that could be rental and nothing more over that.
And just real quick to clarify on that, it wouldn't be in the SP document. We can regulate short-term rentals. We cannot regulate long-term rentals through zoning. So that would have to be something in the HOA, but the HOA is more than capable of doing such things. Would the property owner want to unmute and explain further, or did Jared cover it?
Yes, I'm available.
Great. Did you have anything to add?
I do. My name is Michael Osmond. Yes, our intention is for the entirety of the property to be owner occupied, and that would be the setup from the beginning of not only the HOA, but of course, any sales that we would have would be to owners that would occupy the property. Now, with that said, of course, we can't restrict what owners would do in the future, but certainly at the onset, all of the houses would be sold to owner occupants.
Great. Jared or Mr. Oliver, did you have anything else to add before we move on?
Only that if you're interested in seeing the branch libraries that we're building right now, if you haven't been up to Southeast, you can't get in right now, but if you'd like to take a look from the outside to give you a sense of the kind of building we're building, and also the Bellevue branch that Jared referred to earlier out in Bellevue, will give you a great idea of what we're able to create in a community setting. So thank you all.
Thank you all so much for coming out and for that presentation. What we'll do for the next presentation, we'll make sure to grab some pictures of some of the newer libraries that you all are building so that we can show those pictures as well to give people an idea of what those newer libraries look like. So again, we're not making any decision on this tonight. This was just to inform the community, to get the conversation started. We will have them back at a future community meeting to, you know, go over any additional questions that anyone may have. And again, this recording is available, so anyone who's not here, you can share the link with your neighbors so that they can go back and watch this as well. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us. Our next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You're so welcome. Our next presentation, we have Catherine on the line with us, and this is for a rezoning, proposal for a rezoning for one parcel of land. And this parcel is located at 2649 Smith Springs Road, which is very close to the corner of Smith Springs and Bell Road. If you're familiar with the Exxon gas station that's right there, and diagonally across the street, there is a tattoo parlor, which many people don't know that some people don't know that there's a tattoo parlor there because it looks like a house, but there's a tattoo parlor there, and this is for the property next to the tattoo parlor. So I was able to meet back before COVID came. I was able to meet with Kat in person with Mr. Wilkinson and myself, and you know, we covered a lot of information and questions, and I told her that I would get her in front of the community so that we can see if anyone had any concerns or you know, just to get some feedback. And this one actually Kat is going through that rezoning process. So this will be going before the Planning Commission on February the 11th. So after she presents, if you all have any questions, we can discuss that here. And then you will also be able to discuss at planning. And if it moves forward, again, you can discuss at council on second reading. So with that, Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can go ahead and start. Matthew, can you unmute her?
I sent a request to unmute. Unfortunately, with this version of WebEx, I can't unmute people. I can only request them to unmute.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, if you can hear us, you're still muted.
Okay, I think I got it.
Yep, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone see my slideshow?
We can, yes.
Awesome. All right, thanks everyone for your time this evening. So I purchased this property back in January of last year, and I had met with Councilmember Porterfield right before the shutdown about this potential project. And now that things are ramping up, we're ready to move forward with our idea. So my business partner, Ty, we are planning to rezone as office space, and this will be a place for medical corrective pigment camouflage. And I'm going to let Ty talk to you guys about that because she's kind of the expert. So I'm passing you off to Ty Orton.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for Councilmember Porterfield for hosting us. We really appreciate it. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about what our intentions are for this property. And at the end, if anybody has any questions, we'd be more than glad to answer any and every question you have. As Kat mentioned, my name is Ty Orton. I'm the owner of Alchemy Nashville and co-owner of Alchemy Murfreesboro. I'm a micropigmentation technician that specializes in medical and permanent makeup. I have over 15 years experience in my chosen field, and I've operated in Nashville for over 10 years. Before I began my career path, and prior to my 21st birthday, I was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of lymphoma cancer. This served as a huge motivating factor that led me to develop my career in wanting to help others who have underwent medical procedures and experienced trauma and illnesses that have altered their bodies. My skill set also serves to assist those that want to improve their appearance in a multitude of applications, which I'd like to review with you. The first is post-mastectomy paramedical areola repigmentation, which is a twist of words, but essentially what this is a procedure that works in tandem with post-surgery operations that would remove in part or in total breast tissue, skin, nipples, and areolas. The service I offer recreates the areola using custom blended and shadowing effects to create a natural look. This procedure can also be requested by those wanting to size and shape after breast augmentation. The second is a permanent cosmetic realm. A few examples of these procedures would include 3D eyebrows, powder brows, lash enhancement, lip liner, and aqua lips. There's a ton of marketing names for these services, but what I mentioned is the essential category that covers most of these services offered. The third is microneedling and micropigment corrections. This scope of work is custom matching pigments to disguise the affected area and render the scarring or stretch marks invisible. Microneedling can be used on scars, stretch marks, or burns to reduce the size of the affected skin, decrease redness, and adjust the person's color to their natural skin tone. So now that you're better acquainted with the type of the business that will be operating the building, I'd like to go over our general game plan for the interior and the exterior. The building proposed for rezoning will remain as is. Each room will be its own booth and station for appointments. The porch is intended to be rebuilt to comply with ADA regulations and a concrete pad added. The parking lot will be created with gravel. Landscaping will be minimal with flowers and ornate grasses added. And the front porch will be repaired and refinished. The back porch was what we intended to have reformatted to become the handicap access ramp.
Ty, I'm so sorry. Excuse me for one moment. I've seen your presentation, so I know that you all have pictures to go with all of these, but we can only see the one screen that says property purpose. So if you have moved on to show some of those other pictures, we can't see it. So I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Okay, yes, we're coordinating a little bit. So first I'm gonna go ahead and walk you guys through some of the pictures that are examples of what we can do. So this picture is a cover up of a burn scar. So this woman's skin was tattooed in order to cover up a severe burn mark. This was a surgical scar cover up. So just another example of the amazing things that we can do. This was also a little bit of cover up on the balding area on the top of the head, as you can see. Another surgical scar removal. This was the natural pigmentation used to cover up this person's body limb. Here is a hairline tattoo to kind of cover up the receding hairline. And here's a slide about our property updates, which Ty was just speaking of. So the building will remain as is, utilizing the current interior spaces. Just as Ty said, we'll be rebuilding part of the porch to add a ramp so that our handicapped customers will be able to access it. There will be a small gravel parking lot eventually turned into concrete and minimal landscaping just to kind of update. And I'm going to walk you through some pictures of the property as is. So here's a view of the front of the house. As you can see, it's a little dated and definitely needs some updates on the wooden portion of the porch, which we will get to work on. This is the back area where we would like to put a handicap ramp with a concrete pad to make it accessible. Here is the interior. So we'll have a reception and tool repair station. And then each of the individual bedrooms will become a booth or station in order to make the appointments private. All right, and I'll pass it back to Ty.
How do we close out of this? Close out of that. Okay, thank you. Also, some of the other aspects that we wanted to go over were the business operating hours, as I know that might be a concern to some of the residents around the surrounding property. So we are intending on operating between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 in the evening. And we've listed that there might be 4 to 5 employees seeing 1 to 2 clients a day, but in reality, it's more than likely going to be myself working solo in the space, but that's just for the potential of growth to account for that. And more than likely, it's going to be a pretty discreet, very low traffic type of business operating. So that's the main thing that we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you so much. If anyone has questions, if you can raise your hand or put it in the chat, I will share with you all. They covered a lot of the questions that I had initially. One of my concerns was, is this going to generate a lot of traffic? How many people are you thinking of, having in your business, as well as the hours of operation? Many times when you see like a tattoo parlor, a lot of times they have like very late hours. The shop that is immediately next door to them, they don't have late hours there. I think they close around 6 o'clock as well. So this would be very much in line with just like a very close to more of a medical office operation, as opposed to what one might think of as a traditional tattoo parlor. I did speak to some neighbors that live in that immediate vicinity. I spoke with one neighbor who's been talking to a lot of the other neighbors. None of those neighbors are in opposition at this time. I did receive an email from a neighbor who lives further down Smith Springs Road, who said that they were in opposition. I'm not sure if they're on the call or not, so I will be calling them directly just to get an idea of what their concerns are. I don't want to make an assumption, but they may not have all the information on what this is proposing, and they may not realize that it's just one house, like it's just one home, and it's not a big development or something like that. So I'll be speaking with them directly so that I can hear and address any concerns that they may have. But for anyone that is still on the call, do you all have any questions or concerns? And also, is there anyone on the call that is in opposition? Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hands. I don't see. Okay, is the tattoo shop next door similarly zoned? The tattoo shop next door has a different zoning. I went back and looked at that zoning. That one is the zoning was done a little bit differently. The reason that this one we were looking, and Mr. Wilkinson, if you can jump in if I misspeak. Initially, we were talking about doing something that's called an SP, which is a specific plan or a site plan. I typically ask for SPs because we have more control over what the person can or cannot do. I was very concerned with making sure that, like, I didn't want to, let's say, go to a commercial zoning. And right now they have this operation, but let's say in 3 years they sell it, and someone maybe tries to open like a liquor store or something that we wouldn't want in our community, or something that would be detrimental to our community. So initially I wanted to look at a SP so that we could rule out a lot of the things that I knew we wouldn't want as a community. But they were able to work with the planning department, and they realized that they were able to do the zoning as an office space. So it will be similar to, like a dentist office or a veterinarian's office. So that will drastically limit any undesirable projects. Like even if they were to stay here for 5 years and then move away, because that's something that I always consider when you rezone it. It is not just for that one project, you have to think about what happens if they leave the community and someone else buys it, what can then come there. So with it getting that office zone, and that provides a lot of protection for the community to not have undesirable projects. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but the tattoo shop, it did have some with their zoning, they did have some items that were removed that they would not be able to do. But with the zoning that we kind of use now, we think this one will provide more protection for the community. And Mr. Wilkinson, if you can jump in, if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure. So generally, SPs are meant to be larger, but over time they've evolved to be these smaller single parcel things. And the planning department's really trying to get away from doing these small single parcel almost line item like SPs, where they just remove like one or two things. And given the different types of zoning, like the office zoning that this is proposed going to, that is very similar to the SP next door. And so it allows for the same amount of restrictions and protections without the extra layer of bureaucracy that an SP has, because an SP requires a second review by the planning department before they can go on to codes. Whereas with the base office zoning that they're applying for now, once they get their zoning, they're allowed to do what's in their zoning, which is what they're doing, which is a medical office to do the pigmentation tattooing. And so that's allowed, and so they can just go on to codes without having that extra review process and being hung up in the weeds, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Does anyone have any questions? It looks like we don't have any questions. Kat, thank you all for coming and presenting today. If anyone has any questions, would like any follow-up information, if you want to express, support, or if you want to express opposition, if you will email me and let me know. I would love to hear back from you all in the community, and just, let me know what you all are thinking. Especially if you have some concerns. So right now I am leaning towards supporting the project because I do think that it would, it makes sense being close to that corner of Bell and Smith Springs Road. And I want to be mindful of what we're putting in our community. So as of now, I am leaning towards supporting it. Again, as long as there's not if we're starting to see a lot of opposition, of course that would change. But as long as we don't see that, I'm leaning towards support. So again, I would love to hear from you guys. Kat and Todd, thank you so much for presenting. And now we'll move on to the last few items that we have. So there are just a couple of, announcements, maybe a good way to preface this. There is something going before the Planning Commission, and I wanted to make sure that you all had this information in the event that you see this. It may look confusing and it may look like we're doing a rezoning, but we're not doing a rezoning. But I just wanted to make sure that that everyone was aware. When I initially got elected, we had several meetings about the Couchville Pike area, and the residents who lived over in Couchville Pike, they were pretty vocal about wanting their area to be, really moving away from a residential area and having it, we call it a IWD, that's the zoning that we use, but it's basically like industrial and light warehouses. So that zoning is very specific. You don't want to just do this vast industrial zoning, and that may allow for projects that we don't want in our community. So being very intentional about the type of industrial with the IWD, and basically it's office space, it's warehouses. So we have multiple community meetings to address this. The people in the community said this is what they wanted. The neighbors over there said that this is what they wanted. We did a rezoning I believe it was last year, on a parcel of land over there. And there are, if you haven't been down Castro Pike in a while, they are building those, a couple of airport centers. So it's going to bring hundreds, if not a few thousand jobs to our area, which is really, really exciting news. It is, again, with Couchville Pike, it's putting off right there on Bell Road. We do have a traffic light that's coming to the intersection of Couchville Pike and Bell Road. It's not a lot of houses that are left over there right now. So it makes sense because of the proximity to the airport, and it makes sense because of the proximity to Bell Road. So Matthew has put it on the screen, right in the center of the screen. Thank you, Matthew. Right there in the center, that's where the rezoning happened. It has already happened. As you can see, that is, 4 parcels right now. The owner of the property is submitting a final plat approval to create 3 lots on those properties. So basically going from, those 4 parcels, it would be almost like subdivided into 3 lots. It's not changing anything that they were intending to build or what they're already starting to build. It's just more so for their, for their purposes of what they're building. So I did speak with planning to make sure that, that nothing was changing, and they did confirm that nothing was changing whatsoever. But again, I did want to make sure that you all knew in the event that someone had a question or thought that maybe something was going before planning. So this is not a rezoning. That rezoning has already happened. Matthew, if you can go to the parcel that is at the corner of Forest View and Murfreesboro Road, that address is 2760 Murfreesboro Road. And after this, guys, I just have a few more quick announcements, and then we'll be wrapping up. So thank you all for joining today. So the parcel that you see that's in red, the tiny square that's not in red, Matthew, will you touch the little orange square? Thank you. So that is CVS. And as you may have noticed, right there behind CVS, you see a lot of rocks moving. There's some grading going on. The property owner bought that property, and he is building apartments on that property. This is based off of zoning that already occurred in 1995. So this is not something that I approved. This is not something that Councilwoman Johnson approved. This is not something that Councilwoman Woolhoyt approved. This was, prior to any of our terms. What this developer has done is they're building this by right, and he is building again apartments there. I've spoken with the developer a few different times. I did try to talk to him to see if he would be willing to put something that the community would be more so in support of. As I've already stated, my concerns really lie with knowing that our schools out here are either at capacity or close to capacity, knowing the amount of traffic that we have in our community, knowing the concerns about, how long it may take for police officers to get out, or just other infrastructure concerns. I don't support bringing a lot of density to the area when we don't have things in place to support it. So I did speak with the owner to see, if he was willing to do something else. I knew that he was not going to be willing to do something else, but, I have to ask. I have to advocate for the community. I have to, I have to ask. So he wasn't willing to not do the apartments. And, he did state that based on the price point that he bought the land for, it would not be, economical for him to it wouldn't be economical for him to do something else with it. So that's why he is going to move forward. I did invite him to this community meeting as well as the other 2 community meetings. He does not want to attend the community meetings, and he doesn't have to because he doesn't need me to approve a rezoning. So, he declined. He did say that if we had questions, that he was willing to answer any questions that we have and that we could email him, but he wasn't coming to the meeting. I did get a lot of information, and I just want to go over that with you all. If you get my newsletter, which I'm assuming you probably do if you're on this call, if you get the newsletter, I laid out everything in the newsletter, and I know it's a lot of information, but again, I like to make sure that people are informed and that they have the right information. So for this particular parcel, he said he's building 307 market rate units. So that would be a total of 222 units that are 1 or 2 bedrooms. And then there would be 58 townhome rentals, and they would front Murfreesboro Road. And then there will be a total of 27 efficiencies. The complex will have a dog park, a clubhouse, and a pool. Again, when I asked him about coming to a community meeting and having a conversation, he was very adamant on these things are, when you're building something for an apartment complex, it's for the residents of that apartment complex, because, my thoughts were maybe the community will say that, instead of a dog park, would you consider putting something else there? But since the residents of the area won't be utilizing it, it would only be the residents. He again declined the offer to come to that meeting. He did provide me with a layout, and Matthew, I'm going to email you this. I apologize, I thought it had already sent, but it didn't go through. I'm going to email this to you so that you can see the site plan, and if you could pull that up, I can show you all what the layout looks like. The planning department does do a review. However, the review is not one that they're looking at like, does the community want this? Because it's by right, they're only looking at does it meet certain qualifications. So for example, they're looking at the setback, they're looking at height restrictions, building orientation, landscaping, materials, things of that nature. The plan has to be approved by Fire, Public Works, and Metro Water. It will require a traffic study. The plan is including 491 parking spots, 50 bicycle spaces, and sidewalks. The buildings will be brick and hardy board. So those are the materials that he's using. And Matthew, I sent you that email. So if you could open that whenever you get a moment, then we can just show you all the pictures and the layouts. You'll only see a small portion of it from Murfreesboro Road. That portion that's fronting Murfreesboro Road, those will be the rentals. And again, that is the information that I have. If you all have any questions, I probably can't answer it today because I don't have any more information. But if you do have any questions, please send them to me, and I can send them to get any answers that you all any answers to any questions that you all may have. And Matthew may be able to answer some as well. But again, if you got the newsletter or if you follow me on Facebook, because it's I put all of the plans and the layout on Facebook and in the newsletter. So you have a copy of all of the pictures from the site plans.
Great. And since I'm doing a lot of the work on there it goes. On my personal computer to actually host the meeting, since my work computer is recording it, I had to forward that to my personal email. So it just came through just now. So let me open that.
Okay, I'm so sorry I didn't.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, I'm working on getting a better solution.
Okay. While you're pulling that up, I'll go ahead and move on to just a few more quick announcements. And as soon as he gets that pulled up, we'll just circle back to look at the.
I got it.
Oh, okay. There you go.
There you go. Can
So
you see?
that,
There it is.
yes, thank you. So that is the plan. I hate the way these site plans look because sometimes they're if you're not used to looking at site plans, they can look really overwhelming. But the diagonal, if you look at the bottom right corner, Matthew, if you could help, yep, right there, thank you. That's where the CVS is. So as you can see, the townhomes kind of it's a diagonal. So you'll only be able to see a portion of that from Murfreesboro Road. You won't be able to see everything from Murfreesboro Road, but you'll see a portion of those townhomes from there. If you can go down, you'll be able to see what the units will look like or what they're proposing for them to look like. So this is the partial front elevation and the left elevation of the units. This just goes, that next one just kind of goes through like some the floor plans. Okay, these are the ones that I wanted to show. So this is what the buildings that would actually house the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. This is what those units would look like. And again, that would be brick and hardy board. And it looks like, Matthew, are those 3-story units on top and then 2-story units? Are some of these 2-story units and some of them 3-story units? Sorry, everyone. It's a little hard to see from the with this setup. I agree, Jared. It looks like 3 stories. I agree. I thought some of the units were 2-story units, but it may be that they're all 3-story units. Matthew, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? That could be the townhomes that are 2 stories. And Matthew, if you're talking, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I thought I was still unmuted. Sorry, so this is a by right development. So they already had their entitlements utilizing adaptive residential provisions for commercial services zoning. So as the councilwoman said, they already had the ability to do this. They are in the Murfreesboro Pike. If I go back to this one, they are in this urban design overlay along Murfreesboro Pike, so they have to meet the standards for that. As the councilwoman explained, that's mostly just setback, or not really setbacks, but mostly screening, building materials, landscaping, and stuff like that. So it should, I think the final product will be of a good quality and it will look nice, but it still is a good amount of density.
Thank you, Matthew. So again, that's the information. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it at all. But I do believe in transparency and making sure that you all know what we're seeing and what's happening. So I do want to make sure to get, the information to people, as quickly as possible. So we will be covering this again at the next few community meetings because, the people that come at the next meeting may not have come to this meeting. So we will cover it again just to make sure that, everyone that comes is able to hear about it. If you all do have any questions, if you could email me, I'll get that over to the developer. And now we're down to our last 5 minutes. And then if you all have any quick questions, we can cover those as well. The application process for traffic calming has opened up. You can apply between now and January the 29th. So that deadline is coming up. I know I've been sharing it out in the newsletter and on Facebook. But in case you missed it, you do have until the 29th. they are asking that you check to see if your community has already completed a traffic calming study, because there are some neighborhoods that have already applied. We get hundreds of applications, and right now the funding for the program allows for about 25 projects per year. So it is, they do evaluate every area. They look at the average speed, they look at the number of accidents in the area. So they do a lot of different evaluations to determine if that particular project qualifies, and it's based on a point system. So the project with the most points are the ones that they choose for that particular funding cycle. And that was an attempt to try to make the evaluation a fair process so that they can make it as unbiased as possible. I will say that right now, the program they are accepting those applications, but they're still under a freeze. Part of that is a spending freeze, but then part of it is also the traffic patterns have not completely resumed. So, with students aren't back in school, a lot of people are still working from home. So if you were to apply right now and they did a traffic study in your area, it's very likely that it's not going to be a true representation of the amount of traffic in your area. So what they have done is they're still accepting those applications. They still will be doing some evaluations, but there is a freeze right now. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. I've been getting a lot of questions about the vaccine. There are updates in the newsletter, and I will have someone from the health department to come out. There is a link from the state of Tennessee that will allow you to do two things. You can answer a few questions, and it will tell you what category you fall in for the vaccine. And it will also allow you to put your contact information in so that once your group becomes eligible, you'll get notified. One thing to know is that Davidson County does not have a lot. We are getting vaccines. Davidson County has so many healthcare workers, so many homes, nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So we have so many older adults and so many people that work in healthcare that the general population, they've started with 75 and up, but some places are further along. We have vaccinated more people because we have such high numbers, but other places may have been further along in their process. So they may be onto like another age group where we aren't, but that's solely because of the number of vaccines that we've received. So if you have any questions about that, I will be having someone from the health department to come and answer any questions that people may have about that. So we'll make sure to get that information to you all. But again, it's in the newsletter talking about the vaccines. If you are over 75 years old, you are able to sign up for it now. And then they will contact you when it is available so that you can come out and you can go out and get the vaccine. There is also a program that they're doing every day. It's similar to a lottery. And just to kind of explain why it works like that, they don't want to lose any of the vaccines, but the vaccines have very specific, they have to be kept in certain conditions. So they have to be kept like a certain temperature. So once they're doing their vaccines for the day, if a vial has 5 doses, so if someone were to come in and let's say they're the last vaccination for that day and they use 1 out of that 5, they don't want to throw those other 4 away. So what they've done is they are doing every day, you can actually email and get on the list so that if they have extra for that day, they'll give you a call if you're chosen. They only have 4, at maximum, it may be 4 doses. It may only be 1 dose that day. It just depends on the number of people vaccinated. But they'll give you a call and you would have to be able to get to the location within 30 minutes to get the vaccine. So that, again, because it does have to be kept at certain temperatures. So I shared that information out on Facebook as well. If you have any questions about that program or you want more information about it, send me an email and I'll make sure that you get all of that information. The last few things, Councilwoman Toombs and I have been hosting a budget one-on-one series. Councilwoman Toombs is the Budget and Finance Chair this year. I am the Vice Chair of Budget and Finance. So what we've done is it's an 11-part series that we've hosted so that we could have community education around the budget. And the budget is really complex. Sometimes, people might think it's a little simpler than what it is. So what we end up seeing is a lot of times like people have like great ideas of, well, why can't we do this or why can't we do that? And a lot of times those things are things that we can't do because maybe we're preempted by the state or, for one reason or another, not for a lack of will, but sometimes legally we're not able to do some of those things. So what we wanted to do is to create this 11-part series to just educate people about how the budget process works and to allow people to ask questions about it. So we've had a session on property taxes. We've done one on sales taxes. The first few sessions were on how the city makes its money. The sessions now are on how the city spends its money. So the session on Thursday is with Metro General Hospital. We do have one coming up with public safety where we'll be speaking with MNPD, the Sheriff's Office, and the DA's office to talk about the funding of their programs. We've talked through public works and parks. So if you have not attended one, all of them are on a YouTube playlist, so you can go back and watch any of those sessions and hopefully get more information about that process and how it works. The last thing that I wanted to share with you all, I apologize, my computer just froze up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, the last thing is the BZA. For the neighbors who live off of Clear Lake in that area, there have been some concerns with an Airbnb property that the community believes that this person has been still operating their Airbnb even though the permit has expired. And the community has expressed a lot of disdain with some of the actions of the property owner. So right now they are appealing the BZA to lower they were operating after their permit expired. So the BZA gave them a 1-year suspension. And the community believes that they're still operating, and there are a lot of concerns. But then the BZA meeting for that is tomorrow. So I don't see anyone on the call that lives in that particular area. But I did want to make sure that, anyone who was interested had that information. And again, that's been shared out through social media and through the newsletter as well. But one thing that I did want to make sure that people knew was that there is a hotline. So if you suspect that someone in your community is operating an Airbnb and they're operating this without a permit and you have concerns about it, there is a hotline, a phone number that you can call, or you can go to the website to report it. You also can report through Hub Nashville. And I'll just take a brief moment to remind everyone of Hub Nashville. That is your one-stop shop. If you see potholes, if your trash was missed being picked up, any concerns that you have, if you want to know when your brush pickup is, all of that information, you can go to Hub Nashville and it provides a ton of information for you. You can report, reckless driving, or you can ask for a speed trailer, just anything that you could think of that you want in your area. You can report that if a street light is out, you could do these reports through Hub. So that is by dialing 311 or by going to hub.nashville.gov. And with that, I do not have anything else. Does anyone have any questions before we end the meeting? I don't see any hands and I don't see any questions. So again, thank you all so much for coming. Matthew, as always, thank you so much. I forgot to say when we started, Matthew is actually with the council office staff and he's our planning liaison. So thank you so much for being here with us, Matthew. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone that joined the call. And the next meeting will be on February the 10th. We do have some more proposals to discuss at that February the 10th meeting. If I remember correctly, and I apologize, my screen's freezing up again, but if I remember correctly, those were, I think they were smaller. I think they were all kind of smaller projects similar to the project that Kat is wanting. But my computer froze up, so I apologize. I don't have that, but I did share in the newsletter exactly what we will be discussing at that February the 10th meeting, so that people could prepare and, if they had any questions, they would be able to kind of prepare for what we were going to be discussing. So with that, thank you all again for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great evening.